Welcome to the Starting Over Podcast. I'm your host, Edward Sheldon, aka Dark Logos, and this is a show where we look at the strategies, tactics, and mechanics behind the game of heroclix. Yay! It's another nice warm day. It's hot as fire outside. Got all my errands done today. I know some of you might be saying, like, oh my gosh, I'm getting a show on a Saturday. What the heck happened? Is pigs flying? No, I got computer parts, and I need to gut my case and take out the old motherboard, old RAM, old power supply, bunch of other stuff, and put in all the new guts I bought between PriceWatch.com and Best Buy. So, yay. Good day. And I got like 2 hard drives to add on top of everything else. So, hopefully my production time and production quality stuff will be going up here shortly. I know I need to find another like software for producing videos. But yeah, so hopefully everything's getting better on that end. Now, today's show, what we're going to talk about is the watch list. And I know every other major podcast superhero has probably dragged out multiple points to ad nauseum. But I'm hoping that after you listen to today's show, that you'll get a little bit different viewpoint and also some additional, I would say, referendums to sort of the chaos that's going on. Okay, so let's sort of get started. First off, I know a lot of people are pissed that Jakeem isn't nerfed into the ground, and that he, suck. Everybody thinks he should suck, or at least, be able to pick like 1 power or something like that, which is foolish for his rarity and his price point, not his economic price point, but his dial price point. He's appropriate costed. Again, remember, primes pretty much give you access to a power rarity 1 step above your current rarity, and he's already a super rare. So he might as well be equivalent power of a chase. Okay, so right there we automatically should know like what his stupid power level should be. Get the Vegeta Scouter levels and all of that. Okay. Next thing is that he already has limitations on his powers. So there was no way that they were going to nerf him. He can't do everything that's completely stupid. Okay, he can running shot pulse wave, but he can't have pulse wave and imperv. He can't have perplex and regen. He can't have perplex and invincible. He can't hypersonic speed with perplex. Like, he doesn't have any of those limitations. He has those limitations on him where he can't just be full stupid. He can be half stupid. He can be 3/4 stupid. But he can't be full stupid, okay? And that's really what matters, him not being full stupid, okay? The next thing that kicks in is when we start looking at elements about adding on to Jakeem. A lot of people will say it's like what makes Jakeem over the top is the amount of elements that you can add on to him, thus giving him a wider variety of powers that he can select from, thus making him harder to kill. And definitely when you have the readjustment of the average clicks of life being 5 and 6 clicks, Jakeem's ability to add more, damage reduction to himself, add more damage output, more movement, and in some cases maybe more attack, entity, a resource, whatever it may be, makes Jakeem way stronger and outpaces everything else in the game. And then from that standpoint, I would say yes, but there are also many other super rares and chases that entities and resources and relics and special objects and whatnot also give those same advantages to. So those aren't necessarily unique, quote-unquote, advantages. There's nothing where you can say, this only applies to Jakeem, and this effect only is really good on Jakeem, therefore Jakeem should be mutually exclusive to X, Y, and Z. For example, take the Muhammad Ali Superman at full. He doesn't have willpower, But good golly, Miss Molly, if I give him supreme intelligence and wait till, end of turn 1, he has willpower. And stealth. Does that make the supreme intelligence OP? No. Does that make that Superman OP? No. You put the two together and they're really strong. Are they unstoppable? No. But they are pretty ridiculous. Okay. Now, if I go into other mechanics, like if I was able to give that Superman a Green Lantern battery, or in a construct, or give that character Anger's hammer, or something along those lines, it could still be ridiculous. There's no avoiding that. It's just different types of ridiculous. So I think one of the main things to be mindful of is that you can't say like, oh look, add-on elements make this figure broken, so we need to ban the figure, or the figure needs to be nerfed because add-on elements are too good. But realistically, what we need to be looking at and saying is add-on elements needs to be looked at from game design and determine what their role and function in the game is. Because if we fail to look at what their role and function in the game is in the long term, what they want them to be, and should they be properly point costed, then we end up in future conundrums where we go back to the War of Light entities, where they are so undercosted for what they do that the power scales in the game completely shift. Alright, so Jakeem overall, I feel being untouched is fine. I know what's going to end up happening is that he is still going to be on the top end of the meta, and I know every other podcast you've listened to said, look, in the not too far future, outwit changes are coming. Jakeem is going to be reined in, and I believe that that's partially true. That is a partial truth. Now I know some of you would be like, how, Dark Love? Those is that a partial truth? Here's why it's a partial truth. I want you to go through, and I want you to go into HC Realms, and I want you to go to the unit section. Alright, and I want you to type in I want you to just go first. I want you to do less than 300 points. You might be saying like, that's really high, but bear with me. Modern Age. Okay. Then I want you to look for damage power, outwit. Okay. So we're going to select outwit, and then we're going to put it on first click only. Now, the main reason I say this is that most of the time you can get outwit later, and yes, that could change games, but you can't depend on it. We're primarily looking for outwit on first click. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to skim through, and then we're going to ask ourselves, how many of these characters can see through stealth? How many of them? Okay, so we can look at turtles, and I don't think any of these suckers see through stealth. Yeah, so like that's all of them are automatically like just knocked out the rankings right there. Scarlet Witch, Doc Strange, Doc Octopus can't see through stealth. Peace Machine, I don't think he can see through stealth. And then of course my internet decides it wants to dork out right now. Yeah, Black Panther from Avengers Defenders War can't see through stealth. Let's see. Yeah, Alyosha Craven, he's a pog. He can't see through stealth. Nighthawk, I don't know. Yep. Nighthawk, I don't know right now. Let's say the Owl, most likely not. Ironheart, no. Let's just sort of fast forward down a little bit. Norman Osborn, definitely not. Spider-Man Noir, most likely not. Black Panther from Civil War OP, no. Doctor Strange from Civil War OP, no. Yeah, like we could just pretty much see that most of Marvel, you're not seeing through stealth. Move through hindering, yes. See through stealth, no. Let's go look at this Green Lantern of Gotham. I don't know. And the magical phone here is going to see if it can connect to internet, and if it gets interwebs, I'm going to be using that. Yeah, so when we look at DC, yeah, like, okay, Sinestro. Okay, Prize Support Sinestro. Can't see through stealth. Red Robin, can't see through stealth. Let's just sort of go down. Green Lantern of Gotham. Uh, let's see here. Nope, can't see through stealth. Okay, so as like I'm looking, the more and more I make it clear you can't see through stealth. Now I know some of you might be saying like, hey, Dark Logos, what does seeing through stealth really come into play? Okay, here we go. First character I found that sees through stealth and outwits. Fast Force's Batman. Fast Force's Superman from the Batman versus Superman Dawn of Justice. At 150 points, charge, 12 movement, 10 attack, 17 invincible, outwit, 4 damage. This dude is hot fire trash. Okay? First character that can see through stealth and outwit. Okay? Yeah, right there. I think he might be the only character that actually has printed outwit and can see through stealth. Okay? Unless you're able to grant like the Superman TA to some other character through some other means. I think, yeah. Oh gosh. Here we go. Superman 2. Superman 2, that 12 attack, outwit, running shot, 6 range, 2 damage. Oh yeah, that wonderful incapacitate. Yeah, he can see through stealth at 150 points again. Hot fire trash right there. That's prime trash right there. Okay, the first reasonable character that we've gotten that can see through stealth and outwit is Lois Lane from the Superman Wonder Woman set. She's 45 points. She has Superman TA. She can't be targeted unless you're within 2 squares. 45 points. Most reasonable you can get. And then, of course, I forgot, Solaris. Solaris is a Colossal Retaliator. Has a 10 range outwit. Okay, so really, when we look at it, the only characters that can see through stealth inherently, without adding Brainiac on the outwit, and they already see through stealth, is that Solaris and that Lois Lane. Now, the main reason I want to say is like seeing through stealth is super important because if you can't draw a line of fire to outwit, you can't outwit Jack of Jakeem's. And if Jakeem is going to have stealth and willpower, there's too many maps in which you're not going to be able to draw a line of fire to him, because if I'm a Jakeem player, I want to make sure that I'm stealth. I want to constantly make sure that I'm stealth. You might actually even see smart Jakeem players adapt their team build knowing that Jakeem needs to be stealth after the new rules changes to protect him from the multitude of outwits. Yes, there is Peggy Carter to come in and shut that stuff down. Glory, hallelujah. The same thing with Nick Fury. Praise the Lord. Okay? And the church said amen. All right. But realistically, if we're talking about counters to Jakeem and them being constant counters, are you going to constantly play Peggy Carter as your prime? Or better yet, are you constantly going to be playing Chameleon to have the option of Peggy Carter? Are you constantly going to be playing Nick Fury proper? Because an ID card will help you for one turn, but if you can't KO Jakeem in that one turn, you're screwed. And even to more emphasize it is that if you don't have leadership so that you can get that additional action in, okay, you're summoning that ID card. You have 2 actions to kill Jakeem. If you could kill my Jakeem in 2 actions, then it's my fault for placing Jakeem like that. That's on me, 100%. Okay, that's a failure play of the Jakeem player. So you need at least 3 actions to actually do something with Jakeem. Okay, to do something to try to take out Jakeem, and possibly all 3 of those actions being attacks, just to grind him down. And so those are things to actually legitimately to be mindful of. So is Jakeem off of the top of the meta? No. Are the new rules going to come in and completely nerf Jakeem? They will hurt mid to low level players. Period. They will not. It will not hurt your above average and above players. Period. All that's going to happen is an adaptation in play where you utilize stealth more, whether it's printed terrain or whether it's smoke clouds. You might actually see free smoke cloud usage go up, okay, for a multitude of reasons. Okay, so right there, like Jakeem Thunder, is he fine? Yes. Is he going to move into a place where he has more risk? Yes. Is that primarily going to affect the average player? Yes. And they are the ones that complain more. Now, this case is the reaction to World Championship, so that's a completely different story. This watch list is a reaction to high level play. This watch list is not a reaction to mid to low level complaints. Okay, all right. So let's go ahead and move on to the next element on the watch list that was, it got a lot of people sort of pissed off, but it was actually a necessary nerf. And that is to the Pym Pocket Tank. Now, the Pym Pocket Tank, when it came out, we all thought it was dumb. We all knew it was dumb. Hell, Scott Crampton was willing to spend $100 to get one. Okay, that's how stupid that was. And so, what ends up happening is that when we take away the penetrating damage off the Pym Pocket Tank, it becomes a repositioning tool. When we take the attack plus the damage off the Pym Pocket Tank, how it's played is completely from a positioning standpoint. I really want to make that clear. It's from a positioning standpoint. Alright, now there's two levels of positioning that needs to be dealt with when I say this. First level of positioning is a terrainal. The second is a spatial. Even though everybody focuses on the spatial first, and the spatial is not that important, okay, in comparison to terrainal. Okay, now you're like, what the heck are you talking about? So when you look at the terrain effects of the Pocket Tank, you're primarily using that of saying, like, I got this really odd shot due to whatever game effect. I'm going to take this shot. I'm going to then expand the tank to blow down all of these walls and reposition these characters, but primarily to blow down all of these walls. Once I do that, and I blow down all of these walls, now I create a situation where my opponent either A, can't fortify themselves properly, B, can't put down barrier in that area, C, does not have a place to retreat to once the late game, the beginning of the mid game, the ending of the mid game, or even the beginning of the late game. They don't have a place to retreat to. If you're able to do that from a terrain perspective, and the last thing is your opponent is not able to utilize whatever special powers from terrain that utilizes blocking. If that element alone, with one action, you're able to blow up or disintegrate, or however you want to put it, multitudes of blocking terrain that would take you at least 4 to 5 turns to do in one action. That does a lot in recreating the battlefield. Insert battlefield for destructible buildings, blah, blah, blah. Hurrah. Okay, so you get that cataclysmic effect going on. Now, the downside, of course, you have 8 points that you launched and then it turns into 50 points of liability. But again, you still have to capitalize on that 50 points of liability, which is the Pym particle tank that's sitting there with 2 clicks of health waiting to be KO'd by your opponent. Okay. So let's go ahead and move into the spatial category. The spatial category is important because A, not everyone is going to be playing or have access to Hawkeye and Hammer. Hawkeye and Hammer are the anti-BGA tools. And when you look, and well, also Oliver Queen, Green Arrow from Dark Knight, or whatever the heck it is. When we look at that, those three in particular, those three figures just say to Bizarro Green Arrow, I'm about to negate your value. In the case of Hawkeye with a series of attacks can kill a Bizarro Green Arrow. For Oliver Queen, I keep just calling him Oliver Queen. I just should say Green Arrow. So in the case of Oliver Queen, he's able to, with one perplex, one shot Bizarro Green Arrow. And of course, Hammer just says, I don't care, son. I'm going to blow you and your crew up for an umpteenth amount of damage. And so even if Bizarro Green Arrow lowers the damage output, they can't lower his attack. If he lowers his attack, the entire team is taking 4 to 5 damage depending on the situation. And so you apply a lot of pressure to your opponent by having any of those three figures. Okay, so now you might be saying, what does all of this have to do with the tank? What it really comes down to is that from a spatial positioning, hitting a cluster of characters with the tank and spreading them out from Bizarro Green Arrow becomes important if you do not have the means to access those other key figures. And I really want to make that clear. Now, it does sound weird that a person is able to get a con exclusive and not be able to get one of those chases or a super rare. Okay. Hammer is a higher liability because Hammer can't come in through an ID card. You have to play Hammer proper, and Hammer is not that sturdy. Whereas the rest of those characters, whether it's the Hawkeye chase or it is the Oliver Queen chase, they just come in, do their thing, and then poof, be gone. They're off the map due to shenanigans by the player. So when we really look at it, and we're looking at this positioning element, the tank comes in and is a bit more accessible. Definitely after the nerf, it's a lot more accessible in terms of price because you're going to get closer to paying actual retail value instead of like a huge inflation. The other problem the other element that comes in with that breaking up is not just Bizarro Green Arrow, is the fact that we are now in this weird space where formation powers, or powers that require your crew to be together in a certain dimension, are becoming stronger because they're being used to supplement, tiny characters to take on these bigger Goliath pieces that are a third all the way up to 2/3 of your army. And we're seeing creative options for people that don't want to play BGA, don't want to play Goblin King, don't want to play, blankety blank Superman. You see these like creative teams that synergize a lot of support elements, a lot of POG elements or bystander elements, and then they sort of form Voltron and come together as a comprehensive plan. Now, the problem comes in is that the tank still eradicates these teams. Horribly eradicates these teams. So much so that it might be, one might say like, okay, Dark Logos, we understand that you're trying to give us, the pros and cons of the tank, and you're still trying to show us that it's viable, but realistically, why would I still even think about the tank? Because it can't do anywhere close to what it does. And this is where I want to say this to the player base. Please understand to look at not what something was, but what it is and what it can be used for. Now, if you constantly look at what things were, you're bound to get hit sideways when someone comes back and uses what you thought was a weak tool, and you come to find out that it was a strong tool. Okay, so first and foremost, again, if you're running Swarm or you're running Formation, a majority of the time, most of your support figures are rather soft. So even if they have toughness, dealing 2 damage to that figure means that they're going to take 1. That can drastically change the type of support power that most characters have. Definitely when you're looking at them rotating between starting with Prob, then going to Perplex, then going to Outwit, stuff like that. That can be really huge. Also, blocking line of fire to somebody's 3 probs that they have with your 50-point tank is worth it. It just is. From a positioning standpoint, it gives you a statistical advantage for rolling against your opponent. If those 3 probs had line of fire on your opponent, and then after you went in with that attack, those 3 probs, on you, and now those 3 probs don't have line of fire on you, you're at a huge advantage definitely going into your opponent's turn, because now they're forced to spend an action to destroy the tank to regain that probability control on their force. And if you play it right, you can make it, so that the tank is elongated, and even if your opponent destroys the tank, they would have to use actions to reposition their prob, which functionally makes it so that those are less attacks coming into your force. Now, I understand folks will say, hey, I sacrificed 50 points for that engage. But again, that's a gambit. That is a gambit that is used that you can capitalize on. Now, I'm also going to say this. Is the meta in a position right now for that type of mindset to be more viable? No, it's not really completely. Mainly because we're dealing with primarily a 1 to a 2.5 attacker on average meta. So the tank, the particle tank is useful primarily, like I said, from a topographical perspective. It's way better than from a spatial perspective. Okay, moving the characters around. But if you don't have a topographical problem, then the tank isn't as useful, because you can't convert the tank into enough damage to one-shot Jakeem, for example. And taking the damage off of the attack used to launch the tank, that was necessary to stop it from being stupid. Utterly ridiculous, the amount of damage that you can functionally do with a character, because you can have capped out damage plus an additional 2. So that's better than, it's almost like saying you double critted. Like that's functionally what you're saying. You double critted. Okay, so overall is, I would say put your tanks on your shelf right now. If you need the tank for an ID card, or you need the tank to so you can have more ID cards, or you need the tank to get some like weird effect off, by all means keep using your tank. But the average person is not going to be using the tank, which shifts a lot of different things, and it makes some different play styles a little bit more safer. And if you're playing that PJ Bolin Nationals type of build where you just rush people down using an overdrive, or with the new common Green Lantern, go ahead. I mean, you don't have to fear your entire force being separated, because you need your entire force together to form Voltron. Alright, let's go ahead and go into the next element of Faust being retired. When I found out Faust was retired, I was at work and I was reading it, and I was delivering mail. And I was about to go into the next office, and I literally just broke out into like the Jerry Maguire, like, yes, Like, I was fist pumping and everything. And two ladies had walked by, and they said, like, whatever it is, we're also happy for you. And so I had to stop and pause on that. What does this mean? Overall, what this means is WizKids is willing to accept that they can do everything that they believe is within reason and it still not be enough. Okay? And I respect that. What this also means is that any Golden Age game that WizKids does, they may have to specifically ban Faust. Now, will Faust perpetually be the ghost of BS for every Golden Age game until WizKids just flat out bans him? No. But also the spirit of most people that played those games in the Golden Age games or the weird side events aren't usually jerks. There's other words that involve, you know, the vacuum of matter, but in the first letter. But really, I look at it and I feel like removing him from the play sphere creates a very awesome situation, because now when we're getting ready for fall WizKids opens, when we're looking at spring WizKids opens, we don't have to deal with this. You don't have to plan for Faust. Yes! Sorry, my bro nature came out. So, but yeah, you don't have to plan for Faust. And because you don't have to plan for Faust, that allows for a lot more levels of creativity. At the same time, if we look at the technology that we've developed in reaction to Faust, our gameplay has accelerated greatly. Like the value of the hyper taxis, their stock is stupid high. The value of cheap TK, their value is stupid high. Jean Grey's free TK, so high. All because of the existence of Faust and needing to cross an immense amount of space in one turn to kill a figure that can lock you down. And you may not get another turn. That's how, that's how we have adapted. And if we don't recognize that's how we have adapted, and now the game doesn't have to be that way, we will continue from that stage of adaptation. And unfortunately, continuing from that stage of adaptation means three particular things. Number one, we maintain this route, which means that the game continues on an accelerated pace, which WizKids would love. I don't think that that's necessarily a good idea, because it gives too much advantage to the aggro player. Okay? Route number two, we take a step back and we're like, let's not make the beginning phase of the game be done by the end of round one. Let's try to make beginning of the game at least go to round two, maybe even round three. Okay? The last reaction will come in is, what can we do to functionally nerf mobility? Those are the three paths that can happen. And I know someone could say, well, there's a broad road and all the paths can happen. And I'm like, yeah, a broad road and all the paths can happen, and then chaos ensues. And eventually someone will branch off once a specific road starts winning more. That's just how it is. And I say this as a commentator for several years now. The moment one road that people are traveling is a lot easier, not that less travel road, not that narrow gate road, that freaking, oh my gosh, this road is paved with gold and there's people to massage my back and there's a carriage and there's a horse of a different color, and if I want to really enjoy some poppy seeds, I can road. Okay, we as a community will march down that road and don't care who the freaking Wizard of Oz is. Okay? Whether it's the evil witches, the Wizard of Oz, Gwendolyn, we don't care who's in charge of that castle. You're like, hey man, as long as it's the victory and I'm on the winning side, that's all that matters. Okay, so when we understand that, that's our nature as, in this community, then realistically, we have some core questions that we have to ask with the retirement of Faust is like, how have we changed as a community in our play style, and how much of that is a reaction to Faust? And with that being gone, what are our next steps to move forward? And are we just going to replace Faust with Jakeem, or Faust with Goblin King, or Faust with insert new figure here, Faust with new Thor figure, Faust with, oh my gosh, that Colossal's just way too good, whatever. Okay? So that's pretty much all I have to say on Faust. Ding dong, the witch is dead. Witch, oh witch, the wicked witch. Ding dong, the wicked witch is dead. Oh yeah, you should see me right now, waving my hands in the air. All right, so let's go on to the last element on the watch list, and that's Goblin King. And I know some of you are saying like, why did you wait so long to do Goblin King? Because Goblin King is really the most expansive thing that we really need to look at, and so I just want to dedicate most of the time looking at Goblin King. First off, props to WizKids because they did something that I believed they wouldn't do. And they took away Power Cosmic from 175 and from 75. And I believe that was the best thing that they could do to rebalance Goblin King. I wouldn't say it would be the only thing that they needed to do, but it was one of the best things that they needed to do to rebalance Goblin King. As Goblin King stood functionally in the new era of heroclix that is rapidly approaching, he would be the one on top. Like, period. The Power Cosmic is just too dang strong. I mean it. I really mean it. You couldn't outwit him. You couldn't do anything but attack him with can't use, which relimits a ton of different elements that are in the game. It completely eliminates a bunch of diverse elements in the game. So now you're looking at a situation previously we were also looking at a situation at 75 points. He by far was the best 75 point figures in all of heroclix, period. I mean, like, name a character that is 75 points and is better than Goblin King in all of heroclix. Like really do it. And then I'm willing to do like the Pepsi challenge. Okay, so again, I'm going to my little unit section here. I'm going to put is equal to 75 points. Golden Age. Boom. Okay. All right. Let's just look all the figures and complete history of heroclix, and you're going to see a lot of crap, like just piled high, like you work at the sewer plant. Okay. Just Star Trek. No. Just past that. Okay, we got Scarlet Witch, close. Not as stupid as Goblin King. Cosmic Spider-Man, close. Not as stupid as Goblin King with Power Cosmic. Let's see, the Owl. Oh heck no, that's a joke. That's a joke on everybody. The 75 point Captain America, really good. Not gonna front from Avengers Defenders War. The Chase, really good. No, not that good. Let's just like fast forward down. We're just gonna go Quicksilver from Uncanny X-Men. No. Nick Fury Jr. Nope. Nowhere as good. Aleph, no. Rick Jones from Avengers Assemble is close. Not quite as good. Let's just say Avengers Age of Ultron Hawkeye, 75 points with Avengers TA. Good, not close. Karnak, no. Lockjaw, no. X-Men Days of Future Past Magneto at 75. Heck no. Why is he in a wheelchair? Oh well, it's amazing. Oh gosh. All right, so let me fast forward down a little bit more. Let's just see here. Okay, Chaos War. Hank Pym. Not bad, but no. Ant-Man, Puck Ant-Man. Heck no, but it would have been nice to have that one back in the day. Heck, it might be good to have it now. Giant Man? No. Definitely not. Fast Forces, Chaos War, Scarlet Witch with Perplexin, Prob. No, because I'm playing her at 50. Okay, so just keep on going on. Galactic Guardians, Doctor Strange, really good piece. The Fast Forces, really good piece. Does not compare. I mean, it says adjacent friendly character can use energy shield deflection for 75 points, and he has Perplex, and he phases and flies, and he has defenders. Like, he's really good. He's good, but he's not that good. Let's see. Let's go to DC, because Marvel is letting me down. Okay. World's Finest Huntress? No, not bad. Simon Baz for prize support? No, not bad. Superman from the boxing set? Not bad. Not, you lose your range. He's got Battle Fury. Okay. Colonel Wayne? No. Oh, heck no. Anarchy? No. Deadshot from Joker's Wild? No. Let's keep going. World's Finest and Lex Luthor and Joker are the only things that functionally can make me debate if they are a better piece. They're almost equal to Goblin King. Almost equal to Goblin King. Okay. Brimstone, another one. Real close, just specifically because of what he does. Real close. Okay, so let's just keep going here. Batman Classic TV, the Penguin, no. Jor-El, no, definitely no. From Man of Steel. Let's sort of like jump down a little bit. Ozymandias, no. Hush from Legacy, heck no. Oh gosh, that's just sad. Will Magnuson Platinum from Crisis, no. Tomo Ray from the Green Lantern Fast Forces, really close. 9 range, energy explosion, 2 targets, 10 attack, 17 defense, 3 damage. It's up there. Not gonna front. It's up there. Alright, so what have we seen with this? Okay, what have we functionally seen? For 75 points, exactly 75 points, there is hardly anything, and I do mean anything, in the history of heroclix that comes close, anywhere close, to scratching the back of Goblin King with Power Cosmic. And pick a power. And if you miss, oh yeah, guy, you get a Goblin King token, and you have -1 attack when you target me next turn. All those things put together made Goblin King stupid. He was way stronger than what he should have been. And again, when we talk about that 1.5 to 2 attackers, he can easily come in, supplement a Jakeem, be a very functionable low point attacker plus summoner plus support to Jakeem. Whereas one turn he can come in, support Jakeem or support a call in, and then the following turn he can be aggressive. And on his passive turns, he can just sit next to you and say, I have plasticity and poison. I poison you for 1, good luck getting away. And in the beginning of the next turn, he can say, like, I poison you again, take an additional 1, now I'm going to pick another set of power. Okay. So functionally, taking away Power Cosmic at least now makes it so that from 175 and 75 points, you can take away the powers of Goblin King. Now, I know some of you would say, is like, but Dark Logos, are you automatically going to add that argument that you did for Jakeem and, you know, say, hey, Supreme Intelligence, and put that on there? I don't see anyone putting Supreme Intelligence on a 75-point Goblin King. Now, you can if you have some cool plan and you need him to stay alive because he's your main attacker. I fully understand that. But as it stands right now, there's no reason to put Supreme Intelligence on Goblin King. It's a waste. Yes, it gives him willpower, but now you start putting him out of his category. Like 75 points in particular is 1/4 of your build. And now you're telling me this 4-click figure is going to be above 1/4 of my build, almost 1/3 of my build. Can he carry that amount of weight? And functionally, I feel he cannot. And that's a huge problem. That's a major, major, major problem. So what are we going to, do with that? Like, you can easily say, like in Golden Age, I'm going to add a sin on him, I'm going to add a hammer on him, I'm going to do blank, 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 blank. Yes, because all those elements in concert work together towards a greater playscape. But in Modern Age, as it is now, the only thing that I can see, only 2 elements I can see in Modern Age to put on a Goblin King to make him a viable figure is either the weapons drop or the symbiote. It has to be one of those figures. One of those special objects, so that he can maintain that offensive or support role without having to compromise in the pinch power use. So it's like, oh wow, I really need the pulse wave right now, but I also need to make sure that I have impervious. So I have pulse wave from the weapons drop. I'm going to activate that this turn. I'm going to pick running shot, invincible. I'm going to go do my attack, 10 attack, 4 damage. Boom, I did it. I landed the attack. I understand, I may not have this power the next turn. That's fine. Jakeem, go and do what you need to do. Alright, so you can start to see how good that is. Even if you want to say, oh, look, I put the symbiote on him. Let me roll to see if I got plus stats. Oh, I got plus stats. Now I'm a 11-5. Let me go ahead and pick run shot, pulse wave, and I can pulse wave my opponent for 5 damage. That's really good. That has a lot of utility. So, taking away Power Cosmic, what you've done is you force your opponent to, you force your player that's using Goblin King to reevaluate how much they want to go in on Goblin King. And the only reason to go in more on Goblin King is if he is your highest point figure and you're playing Sworn. Other than that, unless you need a specific type of additional utility brought to you by a special object, and again, we don't know what the hammers from the new Thor set are going to do. Goblin King at his price point is perfect. He summons in Cosmic Spider-Man. He summons in several other reasonably cost figures. But now, because of Oliver Queen Green Arrow, we now are looking at 80 points being the new sort of perfect, like, mid-tier second attacker point value, because you can summon in a Green Arrow, you can summon in a Hawkeye, you can summon in a Cosmic Spider-Man, you can summon in all 3 using one character, and you don't have to bog down your main attacker to summon in IDs. And so that's a huge element. And you can use your main attacker just to summon in Nick Fury. But if we look at that right there, you have Nick Fury. Okay, that's one KR card. You have Green Arrow. That's another card. Actually, no. You can't double up on the level 7. Because Hawkeye is on level 7. I forgot. And then you have Spider-Man. So you have 3 cards right there. 3 cards for 15 points investment and only having to have 3 figures. That's a pretty good deal. And let's go on to the next element, that he has to pick his powers at the beginning of the turn. Now, that's fair. I thought it was sort of stupid how they did allow him to pick powers previously, that he could just pick it whenever, I would have said, like, hey, if you're going to pick powers again, you can have powers until you pick again, but you have to pick powers at the beginning of your turn or the first thing that you do. So you couldn't get, like, the free poison or whatever. Or a perplex off on someone doing a free attack. Little things like that, I felt like was a major sort of step back in regression in terms of game design. I didn't think that it served the community the best. I understand allowing him to maintain that power, but also without sort of stipulating, saying like, okay, you maintain that power, and you can use that power set until you pick again, but if you've already used those powers, you can't pick another set of powers. And I think that would have been more important. That would have stopped abuse. But they have a new problem, and the problem is they don't have enough real estate on the cards to properly reflect that, because they have to put that dial on the back of the cards. Okay. So, overall, nerfing Green Goblin was essential for us to shift away and look at other figures. The introduction of Oliver Queen allows us to realize that the point value for Green Lantern, gosh, I keep saying Green Lantern, of Green Goblin is not necessarily the most optimal point value for a secondary attacker from a summoner perspective. But we also still see from flexibility options, there's really nothing else in his price range that your opponent is going to bring out. Even if you look at Al Jordan, he only is able to pick one power, and he's able to change his size. While the size change is really useful, it would have been better if he could change his size or another character's size. Then you could have an argument about utility, whereas Al Jordan comes in at 90 points and is able to mess with combat symbols, whereas Goblin King was able to pick two powers. So those are elements that I feel that are really, really huge with Goblin King. Now, I know some people will say, like, at 175 he should have willpower, and I would have said, no, that's a little bit too convoluted and makes things a little bit too complicated, considering you're trying to keep things simple. Taking away Power Cosmic from 175 and from 75 is more than enough. Truthfully, I would have thought just taking away Power Cosmic from 75 points just for your overall investment would have been smarter than taking it away from 175. But I respect the decision to do so. I am not necessarily pro, let's just slap willpower on him and let him at least have willpower. I don't think that would have been a good option, because again, he can still pick willpower. Goblin King can still pick willpower. There's nothing banning him from picking willpower. But the outwit protection element, I think that's a little too much for his for the 175 point cost for the investment, because usually characters in that point range that have Power Cosmic historically suck. Like between that 150 to 175, there are very few characters that are that good. So let's go ahead and look at the unit section one more time. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to say in the range, and I'll even give a little bounce. I'll say 150 to 190, and then Golden Age, and then we're going to have team affiliation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say Power Cosmic, even though we could easily say Quintessence, so we could sort of come back and look at that from a Quintessence standpoint. All right, so we have like Cosmic Daredevil, Cosmic Spider-Man, Goblin King, Champion Pool, Uncanny X-Men Phoenix, Starbrand, Ex Nihilo, Tyrant, Mentor, the Collector. The Collector is very unique in how you had to play him. The Phoenix 5 chases at mid-dial. They're okay. Fear Itself Odin. It's not that impressive. Avengers movie Red Skull. That was pretty good. I'll give that one up. Also, Galactic Guardians rookie Thanos. I don't know how I feel on that one. Avengers set with Fire Lord, no, he was okay. He wasn't the best. Star Lord, yeah, like that was. I mean, Stardust, that was good. Hulk Robot, that sucked. Okay, so now let's look at Quintessence. Okay, so let's look at Quintessence here. And Quintessence is giving us Slay Ship Circuits, not that good. Trinity of Sin is okay. Solaris, he's okay. Phantom Stranger, yeah. Sade, Ganthet, Krona, all mediocre. Ganthet is sort of okay. He's better than some of the other versions of Ganthet. Tachyon, very situational. You need to have High Father. There's no reason to play Tachyon by himself. Queen Agapo, nah, man. Nah, she's not that good. Extant, heck no. Black Flash, no. The Wizard Shazam, no. Phantom Stranger from Justice League, no. So we can see that in that price range, Goblin King at 175 was outclassing all, and I do mean all characters in that point value from 150 to 180 or 190. That's significant, and a majority of these characters are rares and super rares. There's a couple that are lower rarity, like Queen Agapo is an uncommon. Extant is a rare. The Wizard Shazam is a rare. But when all said and done, all these characters still had outwit protection and willpower. So overall, I know some people would say, like, look, you're looking at some really, really old figures. You shouldn't do that. Well, let's just look at something a little bit more common, and let's just look at Zeus. Okay, let's look at Zeus, because I feel Zeus is probably the closest, and I really do mean that, the closest in equity to Goblin King. So if we look at Zeus at 150, he has similar stats to Goblin King at 75. He has one more click of health, and the damage output is very similar, and the defense values are very similar. But if you look at it, the only thing Zeus really has going for him is Divine Aura, and he can't pick powers. Whereas Goblin King can pick powers and has the ability to completely dodge Zeus until he determines that he's going to go in on Zeus. Okay, because he could just go stealth, and there's nothing that Zeus could do to shoot a Goblin King without getting, really, really close up. And at that stage, you can just be like, I have two pogs around me, or I have this figure here and this figure here. Getting a single target pulse wave off with a 9 movement is really hard. Okay, so now let's look at the 200-point version, and we compare it to the 175-point version. And again, we see that Zeus is completely outclassed. He doesn't have any movement attack. He just has sidestep. He does have the unlimited control of nature, but he can only pick an attack power. He can't pick running shot. He can't pick hypersonic speed. He can't pick charge. Heck, he can't even pick super senses, which would be really, really useful. Yes, he does have leadership and outwit, but if we're talking about classic Green Goblin, outwit would do absolutely nothing to him. Okay. So, yes, Zeus does have Divine Aura, and Divine Aura is really, really nice, and he can use it to buff allies. But when we start looking at the costs and we start looking at the dials, it's clear. It is so clear that Goblin King is so far ahead of Zeus. It's not even close. It's not even close. Even if you want it to be close, it's not even close. Alright. Overall, I'm just going to start wrapping this up. I think that the watch list was good. I think the watch list did a whole bunch. I really do mean this. Did a whole bunch of elements that we needed it to do to try to rebalance the game. It knocked out 3, of the 4 big elements in the game right now. It made us reevaluate what's really important. And I think the big element is that good stats plus pick-up power should be a problem. And it should be, if you do it, you have to be mindful of what you're doing with it. You can't just give a player a open-ended invitation to pick whichever powers they want. Pick-up power, functionally, how it is applied now, is way too cheap. Way too cheap. It at minimum needs to add 50 points to 60 points to a player's cost, to a figure's cost. Definitely if that figure is 8 or 7 clicks or more. It definitely has to add, that much more cost. So, for example, what I would say is if you're paying 60 points for, you're paying 60 points, you have that new uncommon Green Lantern, which I feel is a really good figure. And then you said, all right, this guy's going to have pick a power, and he's going to pick 1 power. I would easily say you need to add 40 points to that Green Lantern. Now, if you look at the stats aren't that impressive at first. But now, all of a sudden, I have access to Perplex, I have access to Ranged Combat Expert, I have access to damage reduction, on top of Energy Shield, and on top of a Running Shot Pulse Wave, and a TK. So, if I'm able to, let's just say, I pick Energy Explosion, so I Running Shot Pulse Wave, Single Target Pulse Wave, Energy Explode, for 1 damage to all, adjacent figures. That's not amazing, but it's more damage output than I was doing before. If I just slapped on another 10 or 20 points, or even you said like it was some sort of entity, and I slapped on an additional 25 points, and I pick 1 additional power and no stat, it's still it's undercosted, because the amount of flexibility that I could still do is ridiculous. Now, I understand if you say, like, hey, you only can pick in these slots. Now, picking specifically in certain slots, yes, pick-up power should be cheaper. Picking in defense slot and movement slot, if you said you could pick 2, but only in those 2 slots, that would be a lot cheaper than saying, I'm able to pick in attack and pick in damage. Attack and damage are more problematic than defense and movement from a pick-up power perspective. And here's why. I can vastly multiply my damage output from the damage slot and from the attack slot. I cannot greatly reduce my damage or evade damage consistently from the defense slot, and the mobility elements from the movement slot cannot always be translated into an offensive option, i.e. earthbound, i.e. Plasticity. These 2 elements are sometimes defensive elements that allow for control. Even if I pick phasing for access, I'm not being aggressive with that character at that turn. I'm not saying you couldn't make an aggressive move, but you could not make an attack. So, all in all, what we actually are seeing is there's some elements with game design right now that, since they fired the last batch of game designers, or the last game designer, and then they have whoever they have in now, whether it's a singular person or multiple people, they have not looked at the history of the game, and they have not looked at the notes and even the conversations of the last developer. And because of that, what I do believe is that some old mistakes that were made in the past will be repeated again. And because a majority of the WizKids staff are not hardcore, majority of the WizKids staff does not play high-level competitive, they're not, if there was anybody sort of like looking out for some of these old mechanics, it would be the playtesters. And some of the playtesters might say, oh, that mechanic or that type of team really isn't that bad. Now, understanding that from a high level perspective versus a mid to low level perspective is completely different. If someone said, look man, lamp is functionally back, there would be a group of people that would say, yay, lamp is back. There would also be a group of people who would say, yeah, lamp is back, but I play Peggy Carter and I just say you can't use poison, so yeah, it's not that great. Or I use Peggy Carter and I say you can't use Mastermind, then I go kill the Joker or whoever else it is. Okay, but the mid to the lower level player, what's going to happen is there's going to be some rock or something, and the guy's going to net deck, and he's going to be like, yeah, I'm going to use lamp, and then he's going to run through his venue, and they're going to be pissed off because they brought that, their favorite Doom Patrol team that day, and there was nothing that they could do, because trying to grind through a freaking haha Joker that constantly heals himself is ridiculously hard. It just is. So, in the end, the complaints would come back and they would be like, why did you let Lamp back into the meta? And then game design has a problem because there's several elements that would allow for Lamp to come back. The number one being that Precision Strike doesn't affect Mastermind after the new rules. The second would be, there's a character that has a huge amount of health. And the third element is that if you're able to find a character that is, able to do poison, or you're able to grant poison to several characters, and it's penetrating, then all of a sudden you have a recipe for the revival of Lamp, add in a hypertaxi, and there you go. With so many hypertaxis, that's not necessarily a hard thing. So you start to see, it's like, oh, but Dark Logos, you just described what is coming. And I'm like, yeah, I just described something functionally that is coming. And it's coming soon. Okay? So whether it's the old school Green Lantern tank in its new form with the new common Green Lantern, whether it's Lamp, tent poles, man, if we see some of the old days of tent poles, you're going to cry. You're going to cry. We already have seen the whole equivalence of what happened with Super Scroll back in the day with feats, with it's like camouflage, and it was like camouflage, and there were like two other feats that you put on them that just made them stupid to attack. Like he could just roll out scrolls plus shape change plus super senses and camouflage and one other feat. And once you got him on click 2 or 3, it was just like, yep, good luck hitting Super Scroll, buddy. Good luck unless you got Pulse Wave. Okay, so overall, just be prepared to understand and even have some patience that the watch list was fine. Everything that went off is fine. There's not additional things that need to have happened. Everything is actually pretty reasonable while you're making those game elements still functional. Ding dong, freaking Faust is dead! Yes, Faust is gone. Faust is gone. The tank, it solves different problems now. It solves less problems, but it's primarily used for a specific type of problem, and it's mainly going to come back up if there is a map that is causing us a problem, not necessarily a group of figures or a formation that's causing us about a bunch of problems. And just overall, I'm like, Jakeem is fine. Jakeem was fine. There's too many limitations on it. So that's it. I'm going to take a nap. I'm sort of tired. I was sitting down too long. And then I'm going to edit this. I'm going to try to get this up on Saturday. If you're listening to this any other day, yay. I'm going to try to work on the guts of my computer. I don't know how long that will take. Normally when I work on the guts of a computer, that takes me about 1.5 days. Sometimes 3 to 5 if things go south and I have to go to the computer store. But hopefully I don't have to go to the computer store and everything will be fine. And then I'll be back up. And I will have a new show next week. But if I don't, more than likely I won't have a show for a little while because I am going to states. I'm not telling you which states I'm going to, and I might have some conundrums, and I know I have some family stuff that's coming up. So hopefully this isn't the last show for a couple of weeks, but if it is, please understand that's why. It's because states plus getting ready for states with Phoenix Nest, and then family stuff. So and fixing my computer. So again, you can follow me on Twitter at StartOverPod. It came from outer space and told me that a great darkness descended upon a game of Vulgarbark where a D20 wizard ended up corrupting the hearts of youth to use him in every game. I guess when one evil is banished, it has to go somewhere else. You can find my random musings on Twitter. You can find out when a new show is up, and you can holler at me. In particular, if anyone, I'm not getting into magic, but if anybody knows anyone that teaches magic tactics and mindsets, please, put a little comment in the little description stuff in the little thing below. I like to check out some other channels. I'm trying to expand some of my teaching styles and understand, expand some of my gameplay philosophy and theory. Anyway, you can email me at startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. That's startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. If you wish to opine, keep it piffy, keep it interesting, keep it awesome, baby. Let me know what you think about the watch list overall. And do you disagree with me? Do you agree with me on my analysis about the watch list? And then, of course, if you would like to buy a lovely Phoenix Nest shirt or buy a Starting Over podcast shirt, the link is in the description below. I'd like to thank you all for listening, and remember, we all have to start over sometime.